some dreams in our eyes. The crowds roar like a storm on the wind. We're the underdogs fighting again.
What's going on, guys? Good evening and welcome to the program. It's another edition of Stateside Footy, and of course, I'm your guy, Steve, checking in with you. I got to be honest with you guys. I am absolutely tired. It was an absolute slog. A long day today at work, and you know how that goes, right? When you're not really active at work, sometimes the day just drags ass, and that was, quite honestly, today. But enough of that. Let's go ahead and get into it. So please do me a favor and make sure you hit that like and subscribe button, and also hit that notification bell. And if you want, you can also share this video as well too. I'm not going to be mad if you do that. A quick shout out to everybody that's tuning in on TikTok Live as well too. Of course, the link is going to be in the description. So please do me a favor and head on over to YouTube. All right, so let's go ahead and get into it, because we do have a few news and notes that we're going to get to before we actually get into tonight's discussion. And I want to begin with Mark McKenzie here. And of course, it was announced today by Tom Bogert that Mark McKenzie is coming back to the United States to play for the Philadelphia Union in Major League Soccer. And I had an interesting opinion about this one, because it's not about Major League Soccer. As a matter of fact, you can probably make the argument that Major League Soccer is going to benefit from this, because McKenzie obviously is an active member of the U.S. men's national team, but also he's a fairly decent player, and so from that standpoint, Major League Soccer kills two birds with one stone. And you know how Major League Soccer loves paying to potentially bring active U.S. men's national team players to the league. And so from that standpoint, yeah, Major League Soccer killed two birds with one stone. This is actually about the national team. And the reality is that he is an active member of the U.S. men's national team in a position that doesn't necessarily have a tremendous amount of depth. And he was actually one of the few bright spots in Europe, playing in a position that is, I guess you can say, a premium position as of right now for the national team. Now, granted, some will make the argument that, guys that are over 23, 24 don't improve. I call bullshit on that, because really the interesting thing about Mark McKenzie, now, I don't know if you agree with this or not, one of the things that was kind of holding him back a little bit was his consistency, his match-to-match consistency, because he would actually have a very good game and follow that up with a very poor game against a poor opponent before ultimately rebounding and having a very good game. It was just something that he had yet to string together, which was just consistent performances. And that only comes with consistently playing at a level. Now, I'm certainly not making the argument that if he stays in Europe, he's going to end up, playing for PSG or playing in the Premier League. That's not what I'm saying. But that being said, there is a case to be made that if he had stayed in Europe, that he does get over his consistency issues. And maybe, just maybe, he can find himself at a higher league, potentially Italy, maybe Spain, maybe Germany. I'm certainly not expecting a high level But that being said, somewhere over the course of the next 2 to 3 years that he kind of moves to maybe a little bit bigger of a club, maybe even there in France, who knows? But, the reality is this is not a good thing for the national team that a full international that was on the World Cup squad that does start from time to time is going back to Major League Soccer at this stage. Now, maybe I'm wrong about this, and maybe with the roster changes, everything, teams start spending, and all of a sudden the competition level grows higher. But the reality is, as of right now, this is good for Major League Soccer. This is good for Mark McKenzie because he's probably going to get paid, and all that's fantastic. But for the national team, this is not something you want to see to start. To start a new cycle where you're going to have a member in a position that you absolutely need them playing at a high level coming back to Major League Soccer. Now, but that being said, if this is about family, okay, fine, that's understandable. I'm never going to say what is right and what is wrong for a player to come back to Major League Soccer. I'm certainly not going to argue against family, but the reality is we need as many high quality players playing in Europe, and to have somebody defect at this stage right now, I don't know, man. The way that I look at it is, as long as he's continuing to get caps, he's going to be, he's still an integral part of it, of this national team in a position that needs as many high level players as possible. And for him to come to Major League Soccer at this stage, I don't know, man. I found that to be a little bit downer. Some will argue, well, Steve, hey, man, he's not that good anyways. And it's like, listen, man, you don't get to France and you don't get to the national team by being a scrub. Is he at this stage a role player? Sure. But the reality is he can fix his consistency issues and potentially play himself to a higher club, a higher league, and really kind of challenge for a starting spot in the next 3 years. Now, what I will say is maybe that is going to be the case, and maybe he finds consistency in Major League Soccer, and maybe he actually does that. Who knows? Obviously, we can't predict the future. But that being said, I felt a little bit disappointed with this because, again, it's not about Major League Soccer; it's about the national team. And to be honest with you, I just want as many players playing at a high level as much as possible because it's only going to make the national team better. And this one, I don't know, man. This one just it didn't sit right with me. To answer your question, by the way, there was somebody in the chat that asked me who my favorite team from Germany is. I don't necessarily have a favorite team in Germany, really. I like the league, but I don't have an iron in the fire when it comes to Germany. All right. The other piece of news is that Xavier Gozo, his deal with Crystal Palace has become official, so he will head over to South London. And this is absolutely fantastic if you are a fan of the U.S. men's national team. And of course, it plays right into our topic tonight because this young kid is absolutely fantastic. And he's going to the right club. Now, the question is what is, the question that I have for everybody is, what is going to be the plan for him initially at Crystal Palace? My gut feeling is that he'll be involved in the first team, for the first half of the season while, potentially going out on loan in January. Here's the interesting thing about this, that number one, yes, Crystal Palace does a good job at developing kids. That's not the issue. The issue that I have is the fact that Xavier spent the entire summer playing for Real Salt Lake. He wasn't involved in Crystal Palace's preseason. He wasn't involved in any of the training, and so he's coming late into the window. And so that means he's behind the curve. And of course, they have a new manager there at Crystal Palace. And so from that standpoint, it's going to be incredibly tough for a 19-year-old to come into that team behind the curve and try to carve out minutes. Now, what I can envision, at least for the first half of the season, is maybe there's going to be a situation where, Xavier might be able to get, a start in a cup tie, the early Carabao Cup matches. That seems about right. They're also in Europe. So from that standpoint, maybe he can get some minutes in Europe as well, too. I don't necessarily see a lot of regular minutes within the Premier League because me personally, I don't necessarily know if he's at that level quite yet, which also could mean that come January when the window opens again, that maybe Xavier goes out on loan for the rest of the season, and then he comes back at the end of the season ready to go for a full training camp, and then who knows, maybe that changes everything. But that being said, one of the things that you want with a young kid like Xavier is you need him playing regular minutes. And one of the things that I can't necessarily imagine is that he would go play for the U21s. Maybe that might be the case for, to get him a start. And so he gets continuing minutes and continuous play between cup matches or European play. Maybe that is what's going to happen. But I can't see it as a regular thing for Crystal Palace. From the interesting thing, though, from everything that I was told, that Major League Soccer was actually holding up the paperwork here. And when I heard that, I was like, crap, man, Major League Soccer is going to cock this one up. And it wouldn't have surprised me if Major League Soccer did something stupid. But that being said, everything was taken care of. And I'm absolutely ecstatic for him because he's one of our bright young stars that are probably going to play an absolute huge role for this national team. And now that we actually have another player that's being represented in the Premier League, now depending on the minutes, depending on what his role is, from that standpoint, maybe we can gauge exactly what is going to be, what's not going to be for the senior national team. I would probably assume that he's still going to play a pivotal role for the youth teams, especially the Olympic team, as they're going to be prepared for LA 2028. But that being said, there is a spot and there is a role for Xavier on the senior national team. But that being said, it's all going to be dependent on minutes. It's all going to be dependent on his role. But that being said, if the young kid comes good, and who knows, maybe Xavier might even be able to carve out a nice little role for himself in the Premier League if things go well. Who knows? But I would probably assume that for the first 6 months at least, it's going to be a spot start here when it comes to the Carabao Cup, or maybe he might get a spot start in Europa, whatever the case may be. But for the most part, I would probably assume that it's going to be touch and go as he gets caught up with Crystal Palace and their new head coach. It's going to take time for him to bed in. He's going from the United States to England. Yes, there's not going to be any language barriers, but there is going to be a little bit of a cultural barrier there. It's going to take some time for him. It's going to take some time for him to acclimate. But once he hits the ground running, he's going to be a special player. And yet it's another reason why I also watch Crystal Palace. Let's see. No way of all teams you support Spurs. Yep, absolutely. Do I watch Major League Baseball and NFL? I do not. He already has a role. He's going to be an impact sub. Spent $15 million. Yeah, $15 million doesn't mean shit in today's market, right? $15 million is an incredibly cheap number. Like if he was like 30, 40 million, I'd probably agree with you. But you're talking about a 19-year-old kid who is coming to a relatively big club compared to what he is. He's switching countries, and there's a new head coach, and he wasn't involved in preseason. So from that standpoint, there's going to be a little bit of a learning curve. We're probably not going to see a lot of Xavier through the first couple months of the season there in the Premier League. All right, so let's go ahead and get into it. And tonight's topic, I wanted to talk about some of these kids because I was dead wrong, man. I was dead wrong in my thinking, and when the World Cup ended, and when we got into that little bit of that World Cup afterglow, as we were essentially reflecting back on that U.S. performance, a lot of good, a lot of bad. But once Mauricio Pochettino resigned, and we had a definitive answer as to not only who was going to lead it, but potentially what the first 2 years of this the cycle would look like, I started thinking that from the aspect of laying down the law. And what I mean by that is letting senior players know exactly what their roles are going to be, that everybody starts at zero. Nobody's guaranteed a starting spot. And the identity and the culture is going to have to change because, again, I think if anybody that watched that Belgium match in the World Cup, one of the only thing I gathered from that was that the U.S. men's national team is soft, and it's been soft for a very long time, at least for 6 years, if not a little longer. And I've been on record by saying that, because of Greg Berhalter's actions, coming into 2018 when he got that job, and what he did by essentially excommunicating all those players that failed to qualify, especially the ones that had another cycle left in them, not bringing those guys in to begin that cycle, at least from the purpose of maintaining the identity of what it is to be a member of the U.S. men's national team. The passion, the heart, the fight, the things that made us a bitch to play against for decades. There is a certain mentality that you have to be a member of the U.S. men's national team. It's in our DNA. And that was not a part of the process. And so when they made the switch to essentially, go through a youth movement, a lot of these kids came in that had no idea what it took or what it was to be a member of the U.S. men's national team outside of Pulisic, but Pulisic's not a leader. And so Pulisic wasn't going to be the guy that is going to pass down, that USMNT lineage. And so essentially what we ended up getting was a full cycle of a soft coach creating a soft environment that created complacency. And we saw that softness manifest in the World Cup in 2022, the Gio Reyna debacle that spilled out over. We saw it in Copa America 2024 when, Timmy Weah, allowed Panama to get under his skin. And of course, we went out in the group stages. And of course, we saw it in World Cup 2026 with the Ballo debacle that, essentially just split the locker room in half. And when you don't have a strong mentality, when you don't have strong leaders, that is the type of shit that happens, and that has to be rectified immediately. And so my thought process was like, okay, cool. We're probably going to see a lot of guys from the World Cup, because what better place to start than the guys that represented you at the highest level? So they understand exactly that this is not going to be a continuation of the last cycle. There's new expectations. There's new standards. And if anybody, if you want to convey that message to anybody, you got to start with the guys that are quote unquote thought to be your first team. But then again, I had a thought change, because in some ways, yes, that makes sense. But in another sense, it's like, well, here's the thing. You kind of want to create some new horses. You want to create some new dogs. And the reality is, with those senior players, there's an old saying, right? You can't teach an old dog new tricks. They know what they know. Whether it's for good or for bad, they know exactly what they know. But that being said, with youth internationals, and of course we have a talented core of youth internationals that most likely will be representing this team in 2030. They don't know how to fail yet at the highest levels. They don't know what they don't know. And this would be a perfect opportunity for Mauricio Pochettino to bring in some of these bright young stars and teach them how to play the Pochettino way, and to school them on what it is he's exactly looking for. Now, granted, some of these kids are probably not going to be ready, and that's going to be perfectly fine. You can bring in the guys that you think are going to be leaders, right? The Flo Balligans of the world, Malik Tillman, Tyler Adams, Chris Richards. You can bring those guys into camp, and it makes sense that you would, right? Because me personally, I think Chris Richards is probably going to be the captain. And it makes a lot of sense that he would be the captain, because I think he actually exemplifies some of that old school grit in today's modern game. And of course, Tyler used to be a captain. Malik potentially has that leadership gene. And I also believe that Flo has that as well too. And so it would make sense that you would bring those four guys in. But outside of that, man, outside of that, this is where you do want to see your youth. Because one of the things that I like about this is from, if you're looking at some trends of Mauricio Pochettino, what he did in that last cycle, he always rewarded positive behaviors. If you showed up and you trained hard and you played hard and you did exactly what he was asking you to do from a mentality standpoint, from a fight standpoint, he was always rewarding you with other caps. Like it was never just thanks for stopping by. That's not how he operates, and we saw that pretty early in his tenure. From Camp Cupcake 2025, where he was the one that uncovered Patrick Aubameyang. He's the one that put him out there. The Max Arsons of the world, the Sebastian Berhalters, the Alex Freemans, and of course, all of those guys got moves overseas within a full calendar year, and some just recently. Of course, that was what Arvston and Berhalter. But that is the DNA of what Mauricio Pochettino is very good at identifying. And that's what makes me excited for this upcoming window, because this is the opportunity. This is the opportunity to set the foundation from word go. So you're talking, your Julian Halls, your Audrey Mametis, Xavier Gozo, Kevin Sullivan, Diego Cochin, that Pierre kid from Philadelphia, maybe even bring in Christopher Cups. This is also an opportunity to potentially do some good with some guys that missed the cut. Your Diego Lunas, Yunus Musa, Johnny Cardoso, Tanner Tessman, Aiden Morris, to bring those guys in and say, hey, listen, it wasn't personal, it was business. You guys are anywhere between 22 and 24. You guys still have a bright future with the national team. And bring them into the fold. I would probably expect, I would expect Austin Trusty to be there. But this is also an opportunity, to re-jumpstart the goalkeeper position by bringing in, your Diego Cochins of the world, and actually give them valuable training time, potentially even play them. There's going to be 4 games in this upcoming window, so there is an opportunity for a lot of guys to get their first caps, and it makes a tremendous amount of success. Now, did the results matter? Not at all. Not at all. Me personally, I don't care if we beat Mexico in this friendly. I don't care about Peru. Now, obviously, when they play, I would like to see a result. But that being said, is it life or death? No. But what this is laying the foundation for Nations League in November, because this is an opportunity to reward those young kids who you feel are going to play a pivotal role well before World Cup qualifying, well before Gold Cup next season, well before Copa America 2028, well before all of that. This is the opportunity to teach these young kids exactly what it means and what it takes to wear the badge. You can actually get these kids believing that fight matters above all else. Yes, technical performance matters. Of course it matters. And we have some very good young technical players. Kevin Sullivan and Audrey Mamedi are probably going to be absolute stars for this team. And not just for the national team, but also their future clubs as well, too. My guess is that both Mamedi and Kevin Sullivan their time in Major League Soccer is going to be very short. Now, it's interesting, right? Because none of them carry UK passports, right? And so because of the stupid laws out there, they're not going to be able to go to England until they're 18, right? Kevin's 16, I think. Mamedi's probably like 18, so I guess he probably could go right now. But you get my point. These kids are not going to be in Major League Soccer for long. they're going to get their moves, and they're going to go to big clubs. They're going to develop, and they're going to play significant roles. Because the interesting thing, it's like, I don't like, especially in the case of Audrey Mehmeti, I haven't seen a midfielder that has, an American produced midfielder that has the technical gifts of what Audrey Mehmeti already has, and what he will continue, and how he will continue to develop. You're talking a potential world-class midfielder, which is something that in the 30 odd years that I've been watching this national team, and then also watching the domestic game, we've developed some very, very, very solid midfielders, some very good ones that, played in Europe and had very good club careers and were very good for the national team. Claudio Reyna comes to mind. Tab Ramos comes to mind. Michael Bradley comes to mind. Very high level midfielders that we've had. And this kid absolutely has the potential to be literally our first world-class midfielder. He is that special. And Kevin Sullivan, let me tell you, the sky's the limit, right? He reminds me of what Landon Donovan was back in 1999, where you actually essentially have an attacking midfielder that plays like a striker, but also has such a deft touch on the ball, and has such an IQ that he has the ability just to tilt the field with his talent. And the sky's the limit for him as well, too. Like me personally, I look at those two as being cornerstone players that are going to have successful club careers and successful national team careers, and have the potential to be up there on the Mount Rushmore of U.S. men's national team players when it's all said and done. Like those kids are that special. And this would be an amazing opportunity for them to come in. And again, they might not be ready, but it doesn't necessarily matter. Pochettino is going to get, 2 full weeks to work with them. Set the identity in place, and have these kids absolutely gunning for an opportunity to come back. And that's exactly what you want, because at the end of the day, that is for me at least, that is the first thing that Pochettino has to do in this cycle, is get rid of the soft underbelly with this team. And if that means that you're bringing along these youth players, the only thing that's going to do is it's going to make these other senior players take a second look and be like, oh, okay. And that's all that's going to do, is just raise the level. But that being said, it's also, you want to bring them along. You want them to get their first taste, because you want these guys challenging for roster spots in a year. If not for Copa America 2028, for World Cup 2030. You want these guys to be in through the door, getting as many caps as they possibly can, and have them challenging for roster spots as quick as you possibly can. Let's see. Nate Ski, what's going on, my guy? Good to see you. He says, what's going on? RIFC, TID, Rhode Island FC. Yep. Thank you for the feed of the USL and Rhode Island FC. I told you I was going to do it, man. I told you I was going to hook you up, man. And by the way, that live stream was absolutely brilliant, man. It turns out that JJ Williams is probably his time at Rhode Island is probably coming to an end pretty quick. He's been linked, I believe, to Scotland. That would be a good move for JJ. And he goes on to say Kevin Sullivan, 100%. Let's see, Kevin playing with his brother. Yeah, Quinn. Quinn actually is a fun player to watch as well too. I do like. Let's be honest. Quinn doesn't have the ceiling as his brother. Like, Quinn is probably going to play in Major League Soccer for his career, and there's no shame in playing in Major League Soccer. He's going to be able to carve out a good career in Major League Soccer. He's probably going to get the random U.S. men's national team call up, for instance, like this December when Camp Cupcake happens again. I'm sure Quinn's probably going to be there. It makes sense. Maybe Gold Cup, maybe in the Gold Cup as well too. But when it comes to, I guess you can say, mid-level Mid-level competitions like Nations League or even major competitions, probably not. He might even, like, this is the strange thing. He might also potentially could be involved in the Olympics in 2028 as an overage, potentially. I doubt it, but you never know. Let's see what else we got. What we think of Tottenham. Interesting. It's an interesting question. Yeah, allegedly he's going to City. Yeah, and that's the thing is if he goes to City, he's going to be a part of their loan army. But I'm not worried about that. I'm not worried about him being in the loan army. He's got the right mentality. Let's see. Finding a U.S. keeper for the next cycle is huge. Must improve. I agree. And this is the interesting thing about the keeper position, because there is a few guys in Major League Soccer that I wouldn't mind seeing. Obviously, Chris Brady comes to mind. The Schwacke character from Nashville, who I actually happen to like. But overseas, yeah, J.J. Williams to Hearts. Yeah, there it is. There's also, there's Diego Cochin over there. There is the dual nat, the Brandon Nizawa character, who, obviously we have no idea what's going on behind the scenes as far as dual national recruiting, but that would be a big get, just considering the road is blocked in Japan by Suzuki. And so from that standpoint, if he wants to have a shot at starting and a shot at winning, big time roster positions when it comes to major tournaments, the United States would probably make a lot of sense in that sense, just considering, like center back, it's a position that doesn't necessarily have a tremendous amount of depth. And so from that standpoint, you have to be open to any type of discussion when it comes to dual nationals, especially if they want to be here. And so from that standpoint, I wouldn't have a problem with Nizawa. There's also Julian Eystone, who is with Brentford. And I thought I heard that he's going out on loan, which would be absolutely awesome. And of course, you still have Gaga Slonina, who is a part of the Chelsea loan army that absolutely needs to get minutes this season, regardless, if not a permanent move. He's definitely got to get out there out of Chelsea. And then, of course, you have Jonathan Klinsmann, who is in the Italian second division. So, that's the interesting thing is there are very good high-level prospects that are in Europe. There are some pretty decent prospects that are in Major League Soccer. And, when you look at the goalkeeper depth chart, all you really need is one to pop or one to stand out over the course of the next year and a half. And again, for the same thing applies to Audrey Mehmeti and Xavier Gozo and all these young players. Same thing with Diego Cochin. And this is the opportunity to bring him in, get him caps, and get him minutes. And he might not be ready. We're going to find out soon. But that being said, it would not hurt. It absolutely would not hurt to bring him in whatsoever, and just give him some minutes. We have 4 games in that 2-week window from September into October, and so there's going to be plenty of opportunities to give some of these guys an opportunity. Let's see, Sam JNBO, Sam Jinbo. We root for Middlesbrough to get promoted to the Premier League this season. I am actually on that bandwagon as well too. I actually like Middlesbrough. There was something about Borough last season that I absolutely liked. They just seemed like to be the most complete team in the championship last season, and I think it was like their last 4. They absolutely needed a win in their last 4, and they didn't get it, and it just didn't work out for automatic promotion. But that being said, I think Middlesbrough is it. I already have them as one of my 2 teams that are going to get automatic promotion this season. And I there's not a thing about Middlesbrough that's weak this season. It's going to be interesting to see how Will Linkshire evolves and develops into that starting striker. A lot of people were like, well, he did well at Oxford last season. It's like, yeah, but there's a lot of things there's a lot of things that go into a very good season or career year, right? The chemistry has to be good between, the manager and the players. There has to be a good clubhouse. The players have to get along, and you have to stay relatively healthy throughout the course of the season. So a lot of things go into those type of seasons. And now he's going to a new club. And so hopefully he adapts quickly. And he can help Middlesbrough secure automatic promotion, because I'm actually rooting for him. Let's see. Nate Ski says maybe you can stream USL games once a month. I'm actually going to do it once every other week. So I'm going to be a little bit more active when it comes to the live stream and when it comes to the USL. I got a really good reception from that Rhode Island Tampa Bay match this last Saturday. So I'm going to do it every other week. And I'm going to let you guys decide which ones you want to see. And that goes with the MLS live stream as well too. Let me know what games that you like or what sound promising, and we'll do them. So yeah, and that's the thing. It's like in the United States, Major League Soccer obviously is the top flight, and so from that standpoint, yeah, there's going to be a lot of attention, but not enough attention. Not enough attention goes to the USL, and that's going to be rectified on this channel. That's going to be very rectified on this channel. They've done well so far. Our guy Bearhalter has looked well. Morris is coming back soon, absolutely. And also, this last weekend, who looked good coming off the bench? I thought Arston looked pretty solid coming off the bench as well too. Yeah, and that's the thing. What's funny is Bearhalter's been showing this for about a year. He's been showing this form for about a year. And the interesting thing, depending on who you're listening to when it comes to USMNT social media, they'll tell you that it's trash because he plays in Major League Soccer. And it's like, shut the hell up. Like, form is form. And there's a lot that you can extrapolate from form. And let's be perfectly honest. Like, he's been doing it for a good year and a half now. He earned his opportunity to be a part of that World Cup squad. It wasn't undeniable. I thought he actually had a fairly decent showing in the World Cup, but it was good enough to get him a move to Borough. And right now he's 25 years old and he's coming into his prime. And there is nothing to suggest that he's going to slow down. If anything, he's going to continue to grow. And I'm curious what his next 2 years are going to be like, because at that stage he's going to be playing at his highest level. And I'm hoping essentially what that means is Middlesbrough is in the Premier League. And they're finding out a way to consolidate in the Premier League. And he's going to be a big reason because of it. That's what my hope is. Same thing goes with Arston. Same thing goes with Morris as well too. That midfield pairing of Aiden Morris and Sebastian Berhalter has the potential to be a very, very dominant midfield. Let's see. Union riding high, hosting Miami tomorrow. A win would send a message that we're fully back. The interesting thing though is with that Mark McKenzie signing, they essentially, at least for the time being, they'll have two DP defenders. They brought back home dude at left back, and now they're getting Mark McKenzie. And by the way, I think it was the transfer fee was like what $2.5 million. It was an incredibly small transfer fee, but I think it was what $650,000 will get amortized over 4 years. That's going to be the cap hit. Of course, all of that's going to be subject to change this offseason if the salary cap gets raised and the allocation money disappears. Like the money's still going to be the money. It's just not going to be that tight of a squeeze for Philadelphia. But there's also the chance that he comes off a DP contract, and so we'll see exactly how that plays for Philadelphia. But all of a sudden, what they're doing is they are trying to strengthen what I've considered for like the last 2 years has been kind of their weaknesses, which is their defense. And when you look at Philly's midfield and you look at their attack, we'll see exactly what this means for the rest of the season. I'm not expecting Philly to do much, really. I mean, where are they right now? Philly is currently 13th on 19 points. They have a -7 goal differential. Now, what this does is it strengthens their defense, and of course, you're going to have Mackenzie and Pierre back there. That's going to be a strength. And who knows? Maybe with an improved defense, maybe they're going to be able to get some points. Let's understand that they're only 5 points off 9th place in the East, and so who knows? Maybe they can do themselves a favor and sneak into a wild card spot. You never know. There's still enough points out there where anything can happen in the Eastern Conference, and it would be actually a little bit of a coup for Philly if they're able to rebound and do something like that. But I don't know. I don't like if they do. I don't think they have enough goals to make a deep run. Me personally, I think this is Nashville's year to lose. Would you like to see Scally make a move? Seems there's more interest from him than Reyna. Yeah, I would. Listen, I like Joe Scally, and Joe Scally has been a consistent Bundesliga player, so he could play at a high level. And if he happens to get a move to Fulham, that would be fantastic. I don't necessarily know what we're going to find out if that's his level. But that being said, I mean, if you're competing at a fairly significant level in the Bundesliga for a continuous Bundesliga team, I know Borussia Mönchengladbach isn't Borussia Dortmund, but that being said, it's like he was able to hang. I think he was their all-time. I think he set their all-time appearances record last season. So he's been able to hang, and he's only 23. And so from that standpoint, it's conceivable that he even gets better as well too. Me personally, if you're going to go to the Premier League, Fulham is the right team to go to. Either them or Sunderland. Those would be excellent fits for Scally. And yeah, like if Gladbach doesn't want him and they're ready to move on, then yeah, if you can get something from him and he lands in a very good situation, Scally still has a lot of room to improve. Very much so. Let's see. West Ham Millwall is much watch, but yeah, that's going to be great. That rivalry is going to be absolutely fantastic. It's going to be interesting to see what West Ham does in the championship. Same with Millwall. Both of those teams are going to be playoff teams. Let's see. Fair shout, Steve. Just happy to be playing better in Philly. Yeah, like I've never really been a Philadelphia Union guy. I'm not from Philly. Don't necessarily care about the Union. No disrespect to the fans of Philly, but we got our own problems in Seattle. So, but yeah, listen. I don't know how you guys feel about it, but I've had a change of mind, and what makes this even more plausible is we've already heard Pochettino talk about the youth internationals already. So he's already aware. He's already aware of who these kids are, at least on the surface, what they're able to do. And of course, in the coming days, I'm going to create I guess you can say a starting 11 for the opening match to kick off this open window. And of course, that is going to be available on my Twitter feed. So let me go ahead and get that up real quick. Let me get that up for you guys so you guys will be able to get it. And let's see. Let me edit that too. Yeah, there we go. There it is right there. You can find me on X at Stateside Footy. And then, of course, on TikTok as well, too. You guys know what the TikTok address is. But that being said, in case you guys, for those that are watching in on on YouTube. Let me get this up as well too. There we go. And I believe it's the exact same. There it is right there. All right. Whoop. And there's that right there. So it's all the same address right there. So I will be putting that up. I'll be putting that up on my X feed, and so you guys get an idea of exactly how I'm leaning, where I'm leaning, and I think it's going to be, I think it's going to be a really, I think it's actually going to be a fun window, considering that it has the potential to have some of these young guys. Now, one of the things that I worry about is the same thing that happened a little bit with Donovan, but more with Pulisic, and that was back in that 2016, 2017 timeframe. We had Dempsey was in and out of the team with his heart issues. We didn't necessarily have a consistent goal scorer. Yes, Josie Altidore was still there. At that time, he was still playing in Major League Soccer, but we were also using Bobby Wood at times. And so from that standpoint, I think Jurgen Klinsmann, once it was determined that Christian was a different type of player, it seemed like the national team really relied on him, especially through that last World Cup qualifying cycle, and then of course into the Greg Berhalter era. Like, we were very dependent on Christian Pulisic, and one of the things that I would like to avoid this time around is being wholly dependent on these young kids, because I don't think they're ready for that, and I don't think that they're going to be able to handle the pressure. And one of the things that I do not want to see is an erosion of confidence. What makes me think that it's going to be different is that the talent that we actually have on this team is going to be able to carry the load, if you will, right? We have Flo Balogun, we have Malik Tillman. Yes, we still have Christian Pulisic, right? So we have guys, we have Gio Reyna. So we actually have players who are for the I guess you can say the by and large are going to be able to carry that burden, shoulder the load when it comes to being able to score goals. And in effect, what that's going to allow is young guys like Kevin Sullivan, Audrey Mehmeti, Xavier Gozo. They're going to be able to develop, and that's exactly what you want to do. Try to make it as low risk or low pressure as you possibly can. And so from that standpoint, you're going to be able to, create an environment where you're not going to be, putting that young Christian Pulisic type pressure on their shoulders. That's the reality. It's like, I know I said that, Kevin and Audrey have the potential to be up there with those when they were young. They have the potential to be those type of guys, and they do. And in some ways, I kind of think they already are. But we're in a much different situation with the national team now, and we don't necessarily have to do it. That was one of the reasons why Landon was able to have success at such a early age, because we had Brian McBride, and we had Claudio, and we had some of those guys, the Clint Mathises of the world. We had guys who were able to take that pressure, and he was just able to play. And we saw exactly how that worked out. And you can say the same a little bit for Christian when he first came in. There were some guys around there that were able to allow him just to kind of get acclimated and get comfortable before he was able to show that he can play. And he showed it actually quite early. But that being said, very quickly, very, very, very quickly, the national team put a lot of pressure on Christian's shoulders in order to help them not only try to get qualified during that cycle, but also in that cycle after as well too. I remember many a games where it was just get the ball into Christian. And it's like that's not conducive at all. That's not conducive at all. But that being said, let's understand that it's going to be interesting too, because if that is the case and we actually see Hall and we see Mehmeti, we see Sullivan, we see Gozo, maybe we even see, Nico Sarkiris. We see, we see Pierre, we see Diego Cochin. What happens? What happens if they hit? What happens if all of them have great camps? They're going to be back, and that's it. That's like best case scenario, right? Going into that November window, when this is Nations League, right? It's the Nations League quarterfinal, and you actually have those kids return because they're coming off a successful September-October window. And you also have your group of first teamers, and now all of a sudden you have an environment where in training some of these young kids are actually starting to push. Now maybe that's cart before the horse. We're only talking 2 windows in, but that is the environment in which we're trying to cultivate. Right at some point within the next year and a half, are these. Let's also remember Matthias Albert needs to be a part of this. Potentially Cole Campbell. I forgot to mention Matthias Albert. He's got to be a part of this as well too. But within this next year and a half, as we are getting closer, like post Gold Cup 2027, as we're turning that corner into 2028. You need these young internationals who at that point are going to be, some are going to be, well, Cabin's probably going to be closer to 18, but you're talking about those that are already 18, 19 right now. They're going to be, they're going to be turning the corner at 20. And at that stage, you're kind of hoping that they're starting to push upwards in a big way, because you want that competition going into Copa America. That is the ideal plan that Pochettino and his staff absolutely wants for these young kids, that there is going to be competition. And that's going to be the same thing with the guys that did make the World Cup roster, right? I strongly believe that Diego Luna's got a future with the national team. Same way that I feel like Johnny Cardoso, Tanner Tessman, and Aiden Morris also have futures. Same thing with Yunus Musa. I personally believe that they still have a future with the national team. And what I'm actually hoping is those names that I just made, that the fact that they were left off the World Cup roster puts a fire in their belly, because they don't want that. They don't want to go through that experience again. They don't want to feel that pain of not being a part of it at a home World Cup. I hope that drives them, right? That's what I don't know. That's the way I feel, right? When something doesn't go my way and I miss out on something, it makes me work harder to get back to it, because I don't want to go through it again. Now, it's not at that level, but that's what you're kind of hoping. You're kind of hoping that they come back as better versions of themselves. That is the idea. Let's see. Johnny should have a major future. He's a very special player that hasn't been healthy for us. Yeah. I think Johnny is a technically gifted player, and you're absolutely right. He has been kind of hit with the injury bugaboo a little bit. One of the things that bugs me about Johnny is there's Club Johnny, who, when he's on the pitch and he's playing, he's incredible. And then there's national team Johnny, who can't seem to put it together in a U.S. shirt. And what I'm hoping is that he's over that now. That would be the ideal, because Johnny Cardoso, as far as I'm concerned, is probably going to, like, if I can, Nostradamus this thing and go out 4 years, ideally you want Johnny to be the starter going into 2030 at that position. But that being said, there's a lot of variables here. And one of the things is obviously Audrey Mehmeti. And who knows exactly how this kid is going to develop. I think he's going to develop into a very special player. Is he capable of being a starter in 2030? We don't know yet. But then, of course, at that position, you still have Tanner Tessman, you still have Aiden Morris, you still have Tyler Adams. And so that's, that position at defensive midfielder is very crowded. But, that doesn't mean anything over the course of the next 4 years. But Johnny Cardoso is a very, very, very special player. And he has the tendency to he has the ability to lock down this position and make it his. And me personally, I'd like to see Johnny in this camp. I think that would be a good, a nice touch. Because again, you want to reinforce that his future, he still has a bright future with the national team. Absolutely. But guys, I'm going to jump off. I'm exhausted. It's been a long day. Overall, yes, I had a change of heart because the best way to reset the identity is to create a new one. And again, with these senior players that were part of the World Cup squad, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. They are what they are. And a lot of these dudes are soft, and we've known this for 6 years now. And it doesn't do any good to bring it doesn't do us any good to bring a bulk of those players in when you actually have these young international players that don't know anything of what it means to be a part of the national team. And Pochettino and his staff can instill that fight, can instill that passion, and get these young kids playing the right way, playing the way that the U.S. men's national team is supposed to play. From the minute go, from the word go. And really kind of cultivate an environment that is all about earning your position. It's about earning everything. I know it sounds cliche, but that is the reality. That is exactly what you want. You want your young players pushing upwards as hard as they absolutely can and make some of these senior players feel that pressure, because either they're going to crumble or they're going to rise to the occasion. If they rise to the occasion, that only benefits the national team, but it starts in this window, and I would bring them all. And again, some of these guys probably aren't ready, but that's besides the point. I would bring them all. Matthias Albert, Cole Campbell, Audrey Mametti, Kevin Sullivan, Nico Sarkiris, Pierre, Cochin, Hall, Gozo. I'm bringing them all. And I'm also giving them a good run as well, too. I'm also bringing Balogun. I'm bringing Tillman. I'm bringing Richards. And I'm bringing Tyler Adams. Those four are probably like the best of the leaders of what, at least I think they're leaders. Me personally, I think Chris Richards is probably a captain. And that would be a great way to set the tone, set the foundation for this cycle. And let's see, Sam says, I would like Scally to get a chance in camp. Maybe. All right, guys, that's going to do it for me. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. We have Zero Cool in real life. That's cool. Glad I didn't buy that Pulisic jersey. I got one. Of course I got one. All right, but that's going to do it for me. I will be back in a few days. And I think it's going to be a little bit something different too, because we are on the cusp of a new Premier League season. And of course, this Saturday will be a Hotspur live stream as Spurs take on Brentford. So that's going to be a fun live stream. And maybe I'll have a conversation about my expectations for the season. So that should be a very fun conversation. So until then, guys, enjoy the rest of your evening. Have a great week at work, and hopefully I'll see you on the weekend. Take care, guys.
Rusted goalposts under faded